Section 40 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Elizabeth Buchanan. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bencraft Joly. Chapter 17, Part 4. Suddenly, they also discerned ahead of them a court disclose itself to view.
"When we get there,"
Chia Cheng suggested,
"we must have a little rest."
Straightway, as he uttered the remark, he led them in, and winding round the jade-green peach trees, covered with blossom, they passed through the bamboo fence and flower-laden hedge, which were twisted in such a way as to form a circular, cave-like gateway, when unexpectedly appeared before their eyes an enclosure with whitewashed walls, in which verdant willows drooped in every direction. Chia Cheng entered the gateway in company with the whole party. Along the whole length of both sides extended covered passages, connected with each other, while in the court were laid out several rockeries. In one quarter were planted a number of banana trees. On the opposite stood a plant of begonia from Hsi Fu. Its appearance was like an open umbrella. The gossamer hanging from its branches resembled golden threads. The corollas seemed to spurt out cinnabar. "What a beautiful flower! What a beautiful flower!" ejaculated the whole party with one voice. "Begonias are verily to be found, but never before have we seen anything the like of this in beauty."
"This is called the maiden begonia, and it is, in fact, a foreign species," Chia Cheng observed. "There's a homely tradition that it is because it emanates from the maiden kingdom that its flowers are most prolific, but this is likewise erratic talk and devoid of common sense."
"They are, after all," rejoined the whole company, "so unlike others we have seen, that what's said about the maiden kingdom is, we are inclined to believe, possibly a fact." "I presume," interposed Pao-yü, "that some clever bard or poet, perceiving that this flower was red like cosmetic, delicate as if propped up in sickness, and that it closely resembled the nature of a young lady, gave it consequently the name of maiden. People in the world will propagate idle tales, all of which are unavoidably treated as gospel." "We receive with thanks your instruction. What excellent explanation!" they all remarked unanimously; and as they expressed these words, the whole company took their seats on the sofas under the colonnade.
"Let's think of some original text or other for a motto,"
Chia Cheng having suggested, one of the companions opined that the two characters, banana and stork, would be felicitous, while another one was of the idea that what would be faultless would be collected splendour and waving elegance.
"Collected splendour and waving elegance is excellent,"
Chia Cheng observed, addressing himself to the party; and Pao-yü himself, while also extolling it as beautiful, went on to say, "There's only one thing, however, to be regretted."
"What about regret?"
the company inquired. "In this place," Pao-yü explained, "are set out both bananas as well as begonias, with the intent of secretly combining in them the two properties of red and green; and if mention of one of them be made and the other omitted, the device won't be good enough for selection."
"What would you then suggest?"
Chia Cheng asked. "I would submit the four words: 'The red flowers are fragrant, the green banana leaves like jade,' which would render complete the beauties of both the begonias and bananas."
"It isn't good! It isn't good!"
Chia Cheng remonstrated as he shook his head; and while passing this remark, he conducted the party into the house, where they noticed that the internal arrangements effected differed from those in other places, as no partitions could in fact be discerned. Indeed, the four sides were all alike covered with boards carved hollow with fretwork, in designs consisting either of rolling clouds and hundreds of bats, or of the three friends of the cold season of the year, fir, bamboo and almond; of scenery and human beings, or of birds and flowers; either of clusters of decoration, or of relics of olden times; either of 10,000 characters of happiness, or of 10,000 characters of longevity. The various kinds of designs had been all carved by renowned hands, in variegated colours, inlaid with gold and studded with precious gems; while on shelf upon shelf were either arranged collections of books, or tripods were laid out; either pins and ink slabs were distributed about, or vases with flowers set out, or figured pots were placed about; the designs of the shelves being either round or square, or similar to sunflowers or banana leaves, or like links half overlapping each other; and in very truth they resembled bouquets of flowers or clusters of tapestry, with all their fretwork so transparent. Suddenly the eye was struck by variegated gauzes pasted on the woodwork, actually forming small windows, and of a sudden by fine thin silks lightly overshadowing the fretwork, just as if there were, after all, secret doors. The whole walls were in addition traced, with no regard to symmetry, with outlines of the shapes of curios and knickknacks, in imitations of lutes, double-edged swords, hanging bottles and the like, the whole number of which, though apparently suspended on the walls, were all however on a same level with the surface of the partition walls. "What fine ingenuity!" they all exclaimed extollingly. "What a labour they must have been to carry out!" Chia Cheng had actually stepped in, but scarcely had they reached the second stage, before the whole party readily lost sight of the way by which they had come in. They glanced on the left, and there stood a door through which they could go; they cast their eyes on the right, and there was a window which suddenly impeded their progress. They went forward, but there again they were obstructed by a bookcase. They turned their heads round, and there too stood windows pasted with transparent gauze, and available doorways, but the moment they came face to face with the door, they unexpectedly perceived that a whole company of people had likewise walked in just in front of them, whose appearance resembled their own in every aspect. But it was only a mirror. And when they rounded the mirror, they detected a still larger number of doors. "Sir," Chia Chen remarked with a grin, "if you'll follow me out through this door, we'll forthwith get into the back court; and once out of the back court, we shall be, at all events, nearer than we were before." Taking the lead, he conducted Chia Cheng and the whole party round two gauze mosquito houses, when they verily espied a door, through which they made their exit, into a court replete with strands of cinnamon roses. Passing round the flower-laden hedge, the only thing that spread before their view was a pure stream impeding their advance. The whole company was lost in admiration. "Where does this water again issue from?" they cried. Chia Chen pointed to a spot in the distance. "Starting originally," he explained, "from that water gate, it runs as far as the mouth of that cave, when from among the hills on the northeast side it is introduced into that village, where again a diverging channel has been opened, and it is made to flow in a southwesterly direction, the whole volume of water that runs to this spot, where collecting once more in one place, it issues on its outward course from beneath that wall." "It's most ingenious!" they one and all exclaimed, after they had listened to him; but as they uttered these words, they unawares realised that a lofty hill obstructed any further progress. The whole party felt very hazy about the right road, but "Come along after me," Chia Chen smilingly urged, as he once went ahead and showed the way, whereupon the company followed in his step, and as soon as they turned round the foot of the hill, a level place and broad road lay before them, and wide before their faces appeared the main entrance. "This is charming! This is delightful!" the party unanimously exclaimed. "What wits must have been ransacked and ingenuity attained, so as to bring things to this extreme degree of excellence!" Forthwith the party egressed from the garden, and Pao-yü's heart anxiously longed for the society of the young ladies in the inner quarters; but as he did not hear Chia Cheng bid him go, he had no help but to follow him into the library. But suddenly Chia Cheng bethought himself of him.
"What?"
he said.
"You haven't gone yet? The old lady will, I fear, be anxious on your account; and is it, pray, that you haven't as yet had enough walking?"
Pao-yü at length withdrew out of the library. On his arrival in the court, a page, who had been in attendance on Chia Cheng, at once pressed forward, and took hold of him fast in his arms. "You've been lucky enough," he said, "to day to have been in master's good graces. Just a while back, when our old mistress despatched servants to come on several occasions and asked after you, we replied that master was pleased with you; for had we given any other answer, her ladyship would have sent to fetch you to go in, and you wouldn't have had an opportunity of displaying your talents. Every one admits that the several stanzas you recently composed were superior to those of the whole company put together, but you must, after the good luck you've had to day, give us a tip. I'll give each one of you a tiao, Pao-yü rejoined smirkingly. Who of us hasn't seen a tiao? They all exclaimed. Let's have that purse of yours and have done with it. Saying this, one by one advanced and proceeded to unloosen the purse and to unclasp the fan case, and allowing Pao-yü no time to make any remonstrance, they stripped him of every ornament in the way of appendage, which he carried about on his person. Whatever we do, let's escort him home, they shouted, and one after another hustled round him and accompanied him as far as dowager lady Chia's door. Her ladyship was at this moment awaiting his arrival, so that when she saw him walk in, and she found out that Chia Cheng had not bullied him, she felt of course extremely delighted.
But not a long interval elapsed before Hsi Jen came to serve the tea,
and when she perceived that on his person not one of the ornaments remained, she consequently smiled and inquired, "Have all the things that you had on you been again taken away by those barefaced rascals?" As soon as Lin Tai-yü heard this remark, she crossed over to him and saw at a glance that not one single trinket was, in fact, left. "Have you also given them?" she felt constrained to ask. "The purse that I gave you? Well, by and by, when you again covet anything of mine, I shan't let you have it." After uttering these words, she returned to her apartment in high dudgeon, and taking the scented bag, which Pao-yü had asked her to make for him, and which she had not as yet finished, she picked up a pair of scissors and instantly cut it to pieces. Pao-yü, noticing that she had lost her temper, came after her with hurried step, but the bag had already been cut with the scissors, and as Pao-yü observed how extremely fine and artistic this scented bag was, in spite of its unfinished state, he verily deplored that it should have been rent to pieces for no rhyme or reason. Promptly therefore unbuttoning his coat, he produced from inside the lapel the purse which had been fastened there. "Look at this," he remarked as he handed it to Tai-yü. "What kind of thing is this? Have I given away to any one what was yours?" Lin Tai-yü, upon seeing how much he prized it as to wear it within his clothes, became alive to the fact that it was done with intent, as he feared lest any one should take it away; and as this conviction made her sorry that she had been so impetuous as to have cut up the scented bag, she lowered her head and uttered not a word. "There was really no need for you to have cut it," Pao-yü observed, "but as I know that you're loath to give me anything, what do you say to my returning even this purse?" With these words, he threw the purse in her lap and walked off, which vexed Tai-yü so much the more, that after giving way to tears, she took up the purse in her hands to also destroy it with scissors, when Pao-yü precipitately turned round and snatched it from her grasp. "My dear cousin," he smilingly pleaded, "do spare it!" and as Tai-yü dashed down the scissors and wiped her tears, "You needn't," she urged, "be kind to me at one moment and unkind at another. If you wish to have a tiff, why, then let's part company." But as she spoke, she lost control over her temper, and jumping on her bed, she lay with her face turned toward the inside, and set to work drying her eyes. Pao-yü could not refrain from reproaching her. "My dear cousin, my own cousin," he added, "I confess my fault." "Go and find Pao-yü," dowager lady Chia thereupon gave a shout from where she was in the front apartment, and all the attendants explained that he was in Miss Lin's room. "All right, that will do, that will do," her ladyship rejoined when she heard this reply. "Let the two cousins play together. His father kept him a short while back under check, for ever so long, so let him have some distraction; but the only thing is that you mustn't allow them to have any quarrels." To which the servants in a body expressed their obedience. Tai-yü, unable to put up with Pao-yü's importunity, felt compelled to rise. "Your object seems to be," she remarked, "not to let me have any rest. If it is, I'll run away from you." Saying which, she there and then was making her way out, when Pao-yü protested with a face full of smiles: "Wherever you go, I'll follow." And as he at the same time took the purse and began to fasten it on him, Tai-yü stretched out her hand, and snatching it away, "You say you don't want it," she observed, "and now you put it on again! I'm really much ashamed on your account." And these words were still on her lips, when, with a sound of "Ch'ih," she burst out laughing. "My dear cousin," Pao-yü added, "to morrow do work another scented bag for me." "That too will rest upon my good pleasure," Tai yü rejoined. As they conversed, they both left the room together, and walked into madame Wang's suite of apartments, where, as luck would have it, Pao-ch'ai was also seated. Unusual commotion prevailed at this time over madame Wang's, for the fact is that Chia Se had already come back from Ku-su, where he had selected 12 young girls, and settled about an instructor, as well as about the theatrical properties and the other necessaries. And as Mrs. Hsüeh had by this date moved her quarters into a separate place on the northeast side, and taken up her abode in a secluded and quiet house, madame Wang had had repairs of a distinct character executed in the Pear Fragrance Court, and then issued directions that the instructor should train the young actresses in this place; and casting her choice upon all the women, who had in days of old received a training in singing, and who were now old matrons with white hair, she bade them have an eye over them and keep them in order; which done, she enjoined Chia Se to assume the chief control of all matters connected with the daily and monthly income and outlay, as well as of the accounts of all articles in use, of every kind and size. Lin Tai-yü also came to report that the 12 young nuns and Taoist girls, who had been purchased after proper selection, had all arrived, and that the 20 newly made Taoist coats had also been received. That there was besides a maiden, who, though devoted to asceticism, kept her chevelure unshaved; that she was originally a denizen of Zu-do, of a family whose ancestors were also people of letters and official status; that as from her youth up she had been stricken with much sickness, her parents had purchased a good number of substitutes to enter the convent, but all with no relief to her, until at last this girl herself entered the gate of abstraction, when she at once recovered. That hence it was that she grew her hair, while she devoted herself to an ascetic life; that she was this year 18 years of age; that the name given to her was Miao-yü; that her father and mother were, at this time, already dead; that she had only by her side 2 old nurses and a young servant girl to wait upon her; that she was most proficient in literature, and exceedingly well versed in the classics and canons; and that she was likewise very attractive as far as looks went; that having heard in the city of Chang-Yang there were vestiges of Kuan Yin, and relics of the canons inscribed on leaves, she followed last year her teacher to the capital. She now lives, he said, in the Lao Ni nunnery, outside the western gate. Her teacher was a great expert in prophetic divination, but she died in the winter of last year; and her dying words were that as it was not suitable for Miao Yü to return to her native place, she should await here, as something in the way of a denouement was certain to turn up; and this is the reason why she hasn't as yet borne the coffin back to her home." "If such be the case," madame Wang readily suggested, "why shouldn't we bring her here?" "If we are to ask her," Lin Tai-yü's wife replied, "she'll say that a marquis' family and a duke's household are sure, in their honourable position, to be overbearing to people, and I had rather not go."
"As she's the daughter of an official family," madame Wang continued, "she's bound to be inclined to be somewhat proud; but what harm is there to our sending her a written invitation to ask her to come?"
Lin Tai-yü's wife assented, and leaving the room, she made the secretary write an invitation, and then went to ask Miao Yü. The next day servants were dispatched, and carriages and sedan chairs were got ready to go and bring her over. What subsequently transpired is not as yet known, but, reader, listen to the account given in the following chapter. End of section 40.